Welcome to Lovely Esteem. I'm Lovely, the auntie you always wanted, the sister girlfriend you didn't know you needed, honey. You got to have self love to have self esteem. And here we know that God don't make no junk. So we're going to sit down, talk about it, and see how we can fix it, baby. Let's do it. Hey guys, this is Lovely with Lovely Esteem, and we are on Healing Through Conversation. And you know, I'm all about a good convo. And today I have the pleasure of speaking with Stephanie Thoma. She's a Forbes author of the best-selling network book Confident Introvert and the host of the podcast event series Redefining What It Means to Be Successful with Less Hustle and More Fun. Y'all know I'm all about the fun, honey. Meaning and wellness, holistic ambition. She's also had, I feel like I'm talking to a star right now. I usually don't get flustered, but TED Talks is my jam. And anybody who does things with TED Talk, I want them to talk to me too. So welcome, Stephanie. Thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Hello, lovely. Thanks for having me. Yeah, I will say I've been behind the scenes at TEDx for 7 years when I was in San Francisco, but now we were just talking about the crazy heat. I'm in Austin, Texas. And yeah, the next step for me is probably to give my own talk. So yeah, got an offer in 2020 and now it's going to come back around when it's ready to.
I love it. So tell us more about yourself.
Yeah. Okay. So, you mentioned my book and the podcast, and really Confident Introvert was based in hosting a really high volume of events in San Francisco. So I hosted 1,000 of them roughly over the past 5 years pre-COVID. And then I just kind of distilled everything. Actually, this was in 2019 before we knew the world was going to shift and do its thing. I just decided, I want to become an author. And is this what I want to be known for? You know what? It doesn't matter. Let's just put something together that I have robust knowledge about. So I kind of decoupled from that idea that like the first book, it has to encompass every aspect of me and what I have to share with the world. It's like, no, this is a piece. It's a chapter, so to speak. So that's what kind of got me over the hurdle of actually being like, okay, I'm going to write it. And yeah, when I first started writing it, I wasn't really talking about it. I know some people are like, oh, for accountability, just tell everyone you're writing. That invites their energy into the process. So you know what? Your energy is sacred. How about you just do the thing? And then when you've done it, you tell people. That's a pro tip.
Yes, absolutely. I love that's me. I'm a secret until I'm like, ta-da.
Right. And it feels so much more gratifying that way. Yeah, because it's like if you, especially if you have an element of self-motivation, or if you're feeling a little wobbly in your idea, it's great to maybe ask for feedback on the first draft, but you don't need feedback typically. If you have robust like knowledge in a certain subject, just go for it. Just begin to draft it, make it a daily habit, set the intention. And of course, like if you have a coach or a mentor or therapist, maybe let them know. But I think that's one thing. I know I'm starting off with a tip here, but yeah, holistic ambition is kind of like the next phase of when you have embodied a level of social confidence, and when, let's say, you have built up your network to a certain extent, where then it's almost like, because hosting 1,000 events, there's some hustle in that. Okay, it's like
Oh, yes,
I'm
that's some
aware
hustle.
that
That's
I
some
was
hustle.
right, and it's not. But the interesting thing is, when I was doing it, I was in flow state
Yeah.
where, and there was kind of a beautiful decrescendo where at the end of 2019, when I was silently drafting the book, I had a silent Vipassana retreat. So instead of hosting a big New Year's bash like I previously would have done, I was like, I kind of want to go inward and do this Vipassana retreat. And that was kind of setting the stage for the year to come. I kind of thought it would be a little reprieve or a break, when really it's like, oh no, this is how your life is going to be for a little bit.
Yes, absolutely. And I love the fact that one, you were able to like it's always so interesting to me, our energy. And I'm a real believer in like ancestry, and I believe in flow and what's happening in your life. And your mind was like, hey, I think we need to slow down a little bit because what's coming up is going to hit you harder than you're prepared for. Because when you're in flow, you're like a workhorse. You enjoy it because you don't know how hard you're working until you stop. Mm-hmm. Like when you stop and you look back and you go, what happened? What? Because when you stop, everything stops with you, you know? And I love how your energy was like, hey, we might want to take it down a couple notches because something's coming around the corner and you may not be fully prepared for it. I know that when I'm super busy, when I have to stop suddenly, it feels like failure sometimes, not in the sense of I didn't do it correctly, but like what energy was I putting out that made it stop so fast? And you have to realize that stop was an opportunity. And that opportunity was for you with your secret that you were preparing to give to the world.
Yeah, no, I mean, so many interesting points here, just really trusting the process and trusting the flow of life and I, sensing intuitive nudges to do something or to not do something, because when I was writing the book, there was a part of me logically that was like, oh, why would I write this now? I'm not done hosting events in this city. I kind of was, didn't know it. But, and now, it's an interesting time in life. And, for anyone listening that either hosts events, aspires to host events, I'm now getting to look back at the different types of creations of just being in flow. And when you're in a creative flow, then ideas feed into other ideas. And it's not always about recreating the wheel. I'm kind of like, ooh, which events do I want to bring into this new city that I'm in? And kind of cherry picking and having more like something, these days I'm doing something virtual once a week and in person around twice a month. So it's a lot lower volume, but yeah, it's about like, I almost feel like there was this drive to like prove myself in a way. I was establishing myself in my career and I'm like, okay, I have an aptitude for this. I like it. Whenever there's an opportunity, I was just a yes person. And now, there is power in being able to say no. But I will say, with this holistic ambition life chapter, foreshadowing, there's this concept of having a reverence for the hustle. And how maybe at one point, I mean, certainly maybe there are people that wake up and they're like, oh, things just come naturally and like it gets to be easy. But actually, I believe in having a base where you do work hard for a time and then you earn getting to, kind of not rest on your laurels, but
but you to relax a little bit. You get to pull back. Instead of doing 100, you can do 85 and realize that 15 is going to fluctuate no matter what you do.
Totally. Yeah.
No, that's, to me, I think that when we're talking about, it's like the power of the train that you're driving, right? Like most of us, I'm 47 now, and I've spent since I was 14 working and building the life that I wanted, building the career that I wanted, working 16-hour days, like just staying in it. And when I probably around 42, I got to a place where I said, hey, we've done a lot. Not that 47 is old anywhere, because nowadays, especially if you're taking care of yourself, you can live so much, longer. But I think that the hustle mentality sometimes prevents you from finding your purpose because you can spend so much time focused on the wrong thing. So realigning yourself back with purpose. And like you said, yes, I'm wonderful at these events, but what events do I love the most? What part of the event makes me the happiest? What can I share with others to help them kind of narrow down what they want to do instead of flailing everywhere and then getting to a place where it burns them out so fast?
Yeah. And, it's that attunement to what you love, what people want, what they need, and also really invoking a sense of fun in the process. So play and fun has been so top of mind because there's all this talk on, okay, like obviously work, especially as an entrepreneur, you're going to be working, like that goes without saying. If like in this capitalistic society, like you're going to be working to be a part of it, right? Like to pay rent, to get food, all of that stuff. It's an exchange. But And then people talk about, oh, be sure to rest. Oh, you've been working hard. Go ahead and take a bath, take a nap. I'm like, okay, check. I will do those things. But then it's like, oh, what about play and fun? And, I was talking with a client today and I was like, what are you going to do for fun this week? And she said, oh, I'm going to go on a run. And I was like, okay, like, I know runs give you endorphins and like, it can be fun. Like, I love running, but I'm like, that's exercising. Like, that is self-care. Like, what are you going to do that like doesn't have an ROI that's actually purely fun? So that's when creativity gets to come to play. That's when, maybe it's baking something, maybe it's like dressing up and like putting extra care into accessorizing yourself, or, there's so many different ways to invite an extra layer of fun. And sometimes as adults, it does take intentionality to bring that into your life.
Absolutely. This weekend I went to a wine festival and I drank no wine, but it wasn't, it was only because A, it was hot, and B, the same wine at the festival at the regular spirit store was like half price. And I was like, I'm frugal. I know what I want to do. I want to come here for the music. I love people watching. It's amazing to sit back and watch people enjoy themselves. I love seeing people super excited about something because I love feeding off that energy. It like gives me just a little, I'm like, And I talk to people, I'm like, you look good, you look great. Oh, dance, go on. I will scream out at you. I do all those things because I'm like, the energy that I harvest from other people, I value that because we take for granted that they're going to be there or that this moment's going to happen again. And I'm really big on intentionally harboring energy versus like taking in the negativity, sitting around watching things. Like I always say, what is your algorithm of your life? How do you foster that? And fun helps you foster a wonderful algorithm. And you did say baking. Biscuits are my thing. I love biscuits and brownies, just in case. I love it. Makes me happy.
That does sound so good. Oh my gosh, biscuits and gravy, biscuits and jam. And yeah, I mean, even you touched on something, even being substance free, because another thing as an adult, fun can be like, let's, have a bunch of wine, let's have a bunch of, something else. And I think that true fun is accessible without substances.
Yeah.
Like thinking about being a kid, I mean, on very rare occasions, kids are on like drugs for whatever reason. I don't know, like not really going to go into whatever that topic is, but it's like, there's an opportunity to, if we can equate presence with fun and true fun. And this also, it's almost like Brene Brown talks about fitting in versus belonging. And
yes,
this really fits in with this topic too, where, if you're fitting in, you maybe kind of tuck a little part of yourself away, you amplify other parts, and you're kind of fine tuning. You're like, okay, I'll present this. And then there's like that slight pause, and then people are responding like, oh, good, I'll do more of that. Maybe you test the waters, you say something, and then people are kind of either flat lines, like not really responding, or there's a slightly negative response. You're like, okay, information, like, and this can all be subconscious as well. And so that's fitting in where, oh, great. Like you have these friends that like you and you fit in, you in that context may be described as, oh, she gets along with everyone. She's so nice, versus belonging. And I mean, it's not to say that you can't have, like it's when you let your quirks shine. It doesn't mean that you don't care about people. It doesn't mean that you're going to just like, say things that like are detrimental to other people necessarily. But it means that there's this element of allowing yourself to be known, so that maybe some of your quirks, it could activate other people because it could be their shadow that they have disowned in themselves, or it could be a part of themselves that they already do embrace, privately or externally. And they're like, yes, this is something that I'm a match for. And that's when you get, oh my gosh, she's amazing. I love her. And, it's just, as the years go by, I'm becoming more and more drawn to this element of really deep connection and authenticity. More and more. It's always been a priority, but I feel like, as our stories unfold, as different relationships begin and go through their process and take on a new shape, Teal Swan says that relationships actually never end. Energetically, they're still there. So,
they shape memory. They're in your memory, and one of the biggest things that I learned a long time ago was we don't have to be friends forever. Mm-hmm. You have reasons, seasons, and then you have lifetime friendships. A lot of the friendships that we have, even if it's platonic or romantic, it's all lessons. They're all lessons that you learn. You learn a little bit more about yourself sometimes in patience. You learn about grace. You learn about things that are fun. You learn, like you said, the shadow you that's hiding is waiting for someone else's uniqueness to shine so that you can kind of come out a little bit, and then you hide back. I think that a lot of us were taught to be perfect, that perfection gene that we all kind of suffer from. And I think that for me, the quirkier you are, the more likely I am to like you, just because I'm like, if you aren't afraid to dance like that, we are here together. If you aren't afraid to speak your mind, I love kind people. I'm not really good with nice people. I am, right. Because that nice act, you take the mask off, you lay it down, the next morning you have to put it back on. But kindness is something that you live and you embody. It's a part of your intuition. And I solely agree with you on the being yourself. And I think that self-reflection is a big part of that. Like learning about yourself, digging deep into yourself and looking at what you consider flaws, thinking to yourself, did I tell myself this or did someone else tell me this?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and getting to a place where you define yourself, but are open to feedback, where it's not about existing in this bubble and like, this is who I am. And if people are giving you feedback that you're not like that, you're like, no, I am like this. It's like, okay, consider other people's perceptions, but sometimes, if anyone's grown up ever feeling misunderstood, I think that's entirely possible. There are listeners here that have had that experience. I know I have had that experience. There can be a period of time and it comes in cycles. It's not something that just ends, where it's kind of gaining some clarity and perhaps, some emotional space to be able to define yourself when perhaps you feel like you've been miscategorized or defined in a way that actually highlights aspects of yourself that are like the worst aspects of yourself. And it's like, hey, can we actually shine a light on those really positive traits? So sometimes you need to consciously do that yourself to have a chance of other people seeing those things and bringing them out more and more. But then, if there are those disowned aspects that we kind of talked about earlier that were made wrong at some point in life, the ages 0 to 7 is when the subconscious mind is being formed, where a lot of that, we don't have conscious memory of it, but we have these beliefs that this is like our truth of this is what's good about me, this is what's bad about me. So, I think one of the greatest gifts of being an adult and fully owning your power and your worth and your impact is getting to a place of understanding, okay, nothing is good or bad, but this is maybe more illuminated. This is something that feels more vibrant when I express it. And then this is something that I feel contracted about when I acknowledge this about myself. And how can you love those parts that other people didn't know how to love?
Absolutely. And that's all about being vulnerable, which I always say, vulnerability is one of the biggest strengths you can have in your life. Being able to say, no, I did that wrong, or saying, no, I did that right. And if somebody kind of rebuts that, being able to say, let me explain my logic behind this. And then I can sit back and listen to your logic behind that. And maybe we'll just meet at a fork in the road where we agree to disagree. But learning how to stand very firm in who you are, but still be able to hear direction. Because I think sometimes I always say I was one of those people, especially when I was younger. I spent so much time trying to prove to myself that I could do this. I was strong enough. I was willing enough. I could get this done, that I was rigid. And I couldn't hear when people spoke to me because my energy was off. But it was because when you spend a lot of years, but sometimes when they say fake it till you make it is very different than pretending that you know something and you don't. Because when you pretend, you cut off all reasoning. And I think that's like a big thing with me about being vulnerable and saying, hey, no, I don't understand that. Or being in a room where I don't feel comfortable, but saying, this isn't usually a space that I'm in, but I'm willing to learn. I'm very open to the atmosphere, and let's see what happens.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that even, there's a topic that I feel is so ripe right here, which is resilience, cancel culture, and yeah, being able to say like, oh shoot, I misspoke, I misstepped. And what I've witnessed is, in certain spaces, if someone says something that's not socially acceptable, there can be this sort of calling someone out, where I'm such an
Backlash,
advocate
yeah.
message, instead of like blasting on social, whoa, this person really messed up, being like, hey, did you know how that could have come across? And come curiosity versus judgment.
Mm.
Because yeah, especially in this social media age, there can be this tendency for people to be like, oh my gosh, that for whatever reason doesn't align with the code of conduct that we're celebrating right now. So like there's almost like a zero tolerance for it, and it makes people bad and wrong, which makes people want to contract and hide or puff up their chest and be like, no, like this is why I'm right. And no one's making friends with that dynamic. So there's just such an opportunity to assume that people have the best of intentions, and to maybe initiate that conversation if you care to, um or just know that no one's entitled to be someone else's teacher. So it's also okay to be like, hey, like I understand there was misunderstanding, but maybe this isn't for me, or vice versa. I just essentially inviting compassion to the way that we relate when there are misunderstandings.
Absolutely. And asking follow-up questions. I think that a lot of people, they hear you talking, but they don't comprehend what you're saying. And then they don't take the time to niche down. There are some people who we've met in our lives, of friends that we have in our lives, or family members, that when they talk, everything that comes out is like, why would you say that? But then it's time to have the conversation. Okay, so when you said such and such, what did you mean? What was your intention behind that? Because maybe us having a conversation will give you a different way to say that, a different way to articulate what you're saying and how you're feeling without it offending everybody in the space. Because a lot of people who say offensive things, some of it is what they've heard and how they were raised. But other times it's because they never took the time to figure out how to articulate it so that it doesn't feel as brash as it is. And when you become, it's like you become friends with the person who says what they think all the time, and you're like, why did you say that? And they go, that's not what I meant. Let me explain what I meant. Like you said, giving people a second chance to say, I know how it sounds, but let me explain. And it invites so many more conversations.
Yeah. And, I'd say it's one of those things, especially in interpersonal relationships or even close friendships. Let's say that you either are a person that is super comfortable just speaking freely off the cuff with certain friends, or vice versa. There is a potential that, let's say someone says, ooh, that was, what did you mean by that? Or that was a little, blah, 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 or this made me feel this way. Sometimes people don't say anything. And, this was actually, I'll give a personal example of a friendship that unfortunately, didn't really make it because there was this instance of over multiple times, I guess, of me just being my unfiltered self and not realizing that this person wasn't agreeing because there was an element of silence.
Mm.
And, and I think sometimes when we are, in our confidence, feeling really comfortable, it's not like you're going to be like asking people, oh, why didn't you respond to that? Or, we're not gonna like be looking at things under a microscope because you're relaxed, you're with a friend. But, especially on the personal growth journey, there are people who maybe, your relationship mutually served each other at one point in time. And then sometimes maybe there's, a gradual sort of growing apart,
Yeah.
So I think that's something that, as we don't always talk a lot about, when it comes to friendships, and there aren't always friendship breakups. But yeah, I think it's really important. I'm just going to emphasize if let's say you are engaging with a friend and there's something that they say that, triggers you, to take responsibility for the trigger, but to maybe bring it up if that happens enough where you feel like the friendship is in jeopardy. Because if there isn't that communication when it's relatively minor, then what happens
Mm.
is there can be a big blow up where, let's say there's a party who just like didn't see the end of that friendship coming because the communication wasn't reciprocal.
Yeah, no, understood. And also, I love that. That's a great, like, kind of pivot into, like you said, grieving platonic relationships, because we don't like, I think in our culture, we're just taught to like get over it. I don't know how many times in my life I've heard, just get over it. You're going to be fine. You're going to wake up tomorrow. It's going to be fine. Maybe you guys will come back together. But really going through the grieving process of losing someone gives you a chance to have retrospect on what happened. And I know sometimes it feels like it's closed off and you may be the only person who is grieving, but I feel like together, like the friendship together, if you really look back at it, you'll figure out where was the yin and yang in that. And if there was ever yin and yang in that, sometimes we hold on to people who probably weren't as interested in us as we thought they were. Or we have this, for me, I try to speak in I statements. I make friendships with very strong personalities because I am a strong personality. So somebody with a more agreeable, whatever you want to do, wherever you want to go, however you want to dress, whatever, I'm like, I need you to make a decision. And I can come off brash because I'm like, what would you like to do? Where do you want to eat? Where would you want to wear? Well, I thought we were all wearing brown. Do you want to wear brown? If you don't wear it. And then people get silent, especially if they're more of a passive type communicator. They're quiet, but you're like the aggressive, I'm going to say what I have to say. I know that it throws the conversation, the relationship off, but really grieving the breakdown of a relationship so that you can understand what you did a little bit wrong or what wasn't good about that relationship and the things that were really good, so you can take it to the next relationship and build on that with someone new.
Yeah. And, there's this element of processing where,
Mm-hmm.
people that maybe tend to be silently processing, ideally there is a point where for the betterment of a relationship, like there does need to be open communication. And the reason why we have hard conversations is to have a chance at repair versus just not acknowledging that there is an issue.
Yeah.
But something else that I found to be really nourishing a few of my friendships over the years have just really revealed themselves to not be a great fit, has
Mm-hmm.
been gratitude. And
Yeah.
not wishing for those times to be in the present, but also, getting kind of abstract, like time isn't always linear, like
I agree.
just being able to, so there are even times now where, let's say there are certain friends that maybe, they didn't know how to communicate effectively, so they like blew up. Like I can think of two different friends where this happened because, tensions were really high during this whole experience we were collectively in with COVID.
Ooh.
And I think that some people who were like just didn't always know how to like manage their own emotions and perhaps projected or amplified negative emotions, right? So I think that even though there are some friendships that didn't end on great terms, like I probably would have liked it to, if it was up to me, I would have initiated a conversation and had kind of like a conscious uncoupling style friendship dissolution. But I mean, that's my style, but I'm like, okay, some people, they need to make the other person wrong to move on, but I don't have to make them wrong for blowing up. They're human. I can still have compassion.
Yeah.
And I still, I've moved on. I have new friendships that are blossoming. I'm in a new city, but I can still think back to some of the good times, right? Like I don't think it's necessary to like burn the pictures and like, because there doesn't need to be animosity, but guess what? This is a part of what it's like when you're living in your truth. You don't have
Yes.
those regrets. and you're able to look back fondly at memories that can never be again.
Absolutely. I am, no, because I'm all about that. Like, don't get me wrong. I do have a personality where if you intentionally set fire to the relationship, I can shut you down because I'm all about occupying space. Like, I'm so big on time equity. We have this small bit of time here on earth. We don't know what the journey is because we're walking it, and it's not promised to us. This whole journey, the fulfillment of this journey is not promised to us. But having people in my head who bring joy and who have taught me lessons, because some of those friendships really taught us lessons. It taught us kindness. We remember, maybe the first time you ever went out to a club together, or maybe the first time you ever went to a different church. It could be a time where, you read each other's journals. That kind of connection you can't rebuild. You can't even pull that. You couldn't recreate that with a new person because it's never going to feel like the first time you did it. Yeah. So I think that the compassion that we have and the grace that we have, and as you get older, you realize, okay, that relationship didn't work out. But remember that time I had on that pink sparkly jumper that I probably shouldn't have on, and they told me I looked so good and it helped build my confidence that day. And since then, I've taken those words and built on that confidence, and it's helped me to really get into a new space in my life that I would have never, ever reached for had not that friendship not been there. And for me, that's like the power of influence, right? So that friendship influenced something great to come out of it. So I can't hate that. I can't dislike that, but I can dislike the fact that, like you said, why did it end so badly? And how can I help these friendships not end as badly the next time around? What can I pay attention to? What are the signs from me? Yeah.
Well, I mean, signs, I think it was a little more challenging during COVID to be in constant contact. And
yes.
If you're used to having face-to-face communication, but you're not having that anymore, then you can miss out on, nonverbal cues that can let you know that something's kind of off.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
Because communication is 93% nonverbal. So that's one element of not really being able to read the other person as well, which can cause miscommunications on both sides of the spectrum. But yeah, I mean, I think even just checking in, especially let's say if you are that friend or you have that friend who tends to be a little more bottled up with their emotions, maybe they identify as being more, anxious attachment on the attachment side of things, and or avoidant rather. It's an opportunity to well, and another thing is being aware of who initiates, and this isn't to be confused with keeping score. I'm not an advocate of keeping score, but if let's say you are calling up your friend saying, oh, like, let's hang out, let's get together. And, I have this one example of a friend from a few years ago now where we would get together for brunch maybe once a month. And then I was the initiator, the planner, the one who would make it happen. And then I realized, they moved away to a different city, just one city over. But sometimes in San Francisco, that can be just like a world away. There's a bridge and everything. But anyway, I set up a brunch, and then like a day before, oh, I'm kind of tired, I don't think I can make it. And I'd be like, oh, okay, thanks for letting me know. What about next month? We would choose another day. And can you believe that happened 6 times? And then I finally, when she asked to reschedule for either the 6th or 7th time, it clicked. And I said, just very calmly, no. I said, I guess we'll run into each other if we run into each other, but I don't feel like this friendship is a priority to you because we haven't seen each other in 6 months.
Yeah, no, but
sometimes it's unclear when you have so much faith in the friendship. You're just like, oh, I'm so understanding. Yes, let's reschedule. You're tired. And then I'm like, whoa, you're tired all the time. Like, you're so tired that you can't see me for half a year. Okay, that's a
Are
sign.
you anemic? Like, what's happening? Are you start asking health questions. You're like, what's happening? Are you depressed? Like, that's me. I'm like, I give you quite a bit of, I'm like, okay. I mean, because I do understand that friendships for me are super, like, that's an intimate space for me to feel like we can sit down together and have, and exchange a meal and talk about our lives. And like I don't like having conversations that are like just surface level. Like, if we're going to sit down and have a meal together, we may wind up crying, or we could laugh so hard that one of us doesn't make it to the bathroom. Whatever happens, those are the friendships that I love the most. And I'm like, in reevaluating if it's a friendship or an associate. And that's so hard to think about when you are used to being in people's spaces, like telling yourself the truth. Like, is this person really my friend? Or has this friendship started to fizzle? Is it me or is it them? Or, hey, we're not going to even place blame. Like you said, no, I don't think that this part is going to work anymore. And if we should happen to go out together, let's do that. But if we don't, let's not plan anything anymore. Because
In
I
a
don't
group
want to,
even. Yeah, be like, hey,
let's not keep disappointing each other. Your anxiety over telling me no, my anxiety over hearing no, my disappointment over the no, but really wanting the relationship to work. I'm not sure I want to do that on the seventh time. I might not have answered the call.
No, I know. And see, this is where, yeah, for some people, there could be someone who was in that same situation where the second time it happens, they're like, what's wrong? But sometimes, and when you have a full social calendar anyway, it's like, okay, maybe you're like, oh, great, I have an extra night to myself. And, you're able to kind of make excuses for a dynamic where this person has effectively turned themselves into an acquaintance. Like, there isn't bad blood, but you can tell that they're no longer in your inner circle. Because I don't know about you, but people in my inner circle, I communicate with at least monthly, at least. That is kind of a minimum, where what's going on in their life, and vice versa. And when things come up, they can celebrate with you. They can, hear you out, and vice versa when something challenging comes up. And yeah, that's what friendship truly is. And I think that the last few years, as there have been, at least in California, super weird ordinances where you can only hang out with 6 people, or like you can only, I don't know, just like lots of weird rules that kind of changed all the time, where people had to be very clear who is a part of your inner circle. Who are you going to let in when you actually are mandated to keep your group small?
Yes, no, absolutely. I think here in Maryland, we had unlimited, we had limited amounts in your house. So like outside, they kind of were, but inside your house. And at first I was thinking, how do you know who's in my house? But I was like, I don't need to even find out how you know who's in my house, because my house, it was 7 of us in a house, and that's just my immediate children, their spouses, and my husband. We all stayed together with my dog and my cat. Like, it was a lot happening all at one time. But it was wonderful because we live on 3.5 acres, so it's a lot of grass, and you got to have a good amount of space. But as far as friendships, we would do Zoom calls and but still live. So we would like tap 2 hours to be on Zoom together. Sometimes people would draw, people would paint, people would make earrings, somebody might be baking, but we all kind of tried to stay connected. And that was very hard, because after a while, I always say it was like the depression of COVID, the restriction of COVID really started, it started weighing heavy on people's hearts. And it was like, I don't want to reach out today, or I don't want to do a call today. And then you, as a friend, your initial reaction is to be like, hey, are you good? Do you want to talk about it?
Yeah.
And sometimes they didn't want to talk about it. And I think that's why, if I'm remembering correctly, like 2022 was like one of the largest years for suicide in like the last easily 20 years. But I'm like, you think about it, if we had 2020, everybody was kind of in shock, like this is really happening, and then 2021, it was like, it's still happening, but you want me to come back to work. Okay, how am I going to readjust myself? Because I think for me, I'll speak for myself. When COVID happened, I was so confused about how busy I was prior, like the week prior to, and how I was no longer as busy. And I had such a visceral reaction to, how can I keep my family safe? How can I make sure that I get to see my friends? That was my frenzy. I want you guys to be safe so that I can see you when this is all over. Mm-hmm. And by the time we kind of came out of 2021 into 2022, a lot of people felt so downtrodden because finances, losing friendships. We lost people to COVID. And I think that by itself is still a whole nother study. I've been doing a lot of classes and courses on, just the COVID disaster and how people are handling the depression from COVID loss. And that's just that's one of those barriers that eventually we're going to have to break down, because when you lose so many people and you see so much loss and carnage happen, everybody's mind isn't able to handle that, on top of friendship and relationships and children and homeschooling. Homeschooling seems scary to me all by itself. Homeschool seems, so I think that's kind of like really a big, just learning from the mistakes that we all make. Because, and you said something that really touched me and made me think about, when you are used to having such a busy calendar and it slows down, you get to really see who wants to be in your space all the time. And that can be really sad when you're not able to go to the poetry spot or go to church or go, or hang out. And that was one of those things that kind of touched me, because I thought the same way that you thought. Like, I thought we were really good, but we're not as good as I thought we were. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, also, it's not cut and dry where, yeah, I can even think of one friend where she was completely unresponsive. And I was like, whoa, like, is she okay? And then it was interesting because she was hanging out with another friend. And then that friend told me she's like not doing well, so don't take it personally. And I was just like, okay, at least she's in contact with one friend, and some people are still kind of on their journey. But silver lining, glass half full, is when it comes to interpersonal relationships, being able to know who your friends are. And I know that it was even a little bit surprising to me, the friendships that strengthened, that emerged. I even, made so many new friendships. I was not doing it the typical way. I was actually traveling during later 2020, all of 2021. And then, was it all of 2022? Most of 2022.
Wow.
Yeah, and now I see a lot of people that are on their own travel journeys, and I'm kind of like, you have fun. I did that, I'm good for now. But yeah, it was kind of like a reset. And I'm sure there are going to be studies that show about, the long-term impact. I mean, it's an amazing experience to have been in. And, at best, it's really allowed us to get attuned to what our values are, and, what we hold dear and how we want to intentionally spend our time.
And as I said before, all about time equity, because when I reflect on my life, I don't like to live in regret. And it's very rare that I live in regret, because I try to make sure that I'm as present as I can be. I'm a super futuristic thinker. Like, my brain is always like, okay, so I would like to do this thing and this thing and this thing. However, I try to make sure that when I'm with my friends and my family, my loved ones, that I'm very intentionally there, sometimes to the point where they're like, you're just staring at my mouth. And I'm like, I was just thinking about how pretty your eyes were. Completely, like, I throw them off so bad. But I think that being able to complement each other, being able to embrace each other's uniqueness, being able to, like, I always say, when you have super close friendships where you can listen to somebody's laugh and know who's in the room, it's a wonderful friendship, because your brain is like, oh, that's Lucy, she always laughs like that. It brings me joy, it lightens up my day. Or somebody's voice when they, say a particular thing, it's joy. I always say, if you're looking for a peaceful and joyful relationship with someone, you're going to go through good times and bad times, but you're always going to want to be in that pocket. Like, that's a great space to be in. But when it's chaotic and it doesn't bring you peace and there's no joyful, you're either trying to be nice because you don't want to hurt someone's feelings, or you try to, like you said, you try to stay in the shadows and, like, you kind of like try to hug the friendship from the side. It can be so confusing.
No side hug friendships. I want a bear hug.
Look, as the older I get, the more I'm like, if I'm gonna hug you, you're gonna be uncomfortable. We're gonna smush it and then let it go.
A real hug.
I mean,
that's what it's about. What? None of this hovering stuff, none of the like side stuff. It's no, like, let's just have it be real.
Yes. But I always laugh. I say, the thing that I appreciate about coming out of COVID and being able to interact with each other is like the newness of the relationship. It's like when you don't get to see your boyfriend or your girlfriend for 2 weeks and then you see each other, you're like, it's just so nice to see your face and to talk to you. And, my best friend, I didn't get to see her for like a year. And when we finally saw each other, I was like, I'm just going to hold on to your arm for a bit. Just hold on, just put your arm right here. And she just held on to me, and I was like, this is so weird. And she was like, I know, but it's so great all at the same time. So I totally get you with friendship and, being able to just reflect on past experiences and embrace what was good about it and even what was bad about it. And then say, okay, in this new friendship or these new friendships, these are the characteristics I'm looking for. These are the attributes I'm looking for from them, and as well as myself, with regards to communication and understanding and disagreements, because friendships that can make it through disagreements are a different kind of friendship.
Yeah. It's not the same as if you never disagree.
Yeah.
Again, it's that opportunity to repair, I think, and getting curious, like seeing the goodness in a person and having that, there's a term, I trained with the YMCA, a paraprofessional therapeutic youth mentorship program back in the day. And they talked about this concept of unconditional positive regard, where with these kids who have been through a lot and you're there to mentor them, a part of the training is to go into the relationship where even if their behavior is bad, they are good. Where making a distinction between, ooh, that behavior, don't love that. I feel this way when that behavior happens, but being like, you are such a good person. And I feel like we can carry that over. It doesn't mean that as an adult, you need to be in something that's unhealthy or detracting from your mental health. That's totally not necessary, even with family, in my opinion, to have those healthy boundaries. But when you are engaging with someone, because you choose to, because you have agency as an adult, to be able to, if there is a disagreement or something that makes you go, there's something crunchy there, to be able to separate the behavior from the inherent goodness that it is in everyone.
Absolutely. I love that. And that's one of the big things that they train you in when you are working in the mental health community, that you are a person before the disorder. You are a person before the addiction. You are a person before any extra words are added. So, like you said, you are a good person who happens to ... and letting them be fully in themselves as much as possible, because it's very rare that you meet a person who does not want to be considered a full human. It's just not how we meet people, but we all go through experiences in life. We all have times where we question our faith. We all have times when we question our friendships, but allowing them the space and the grace to be a full person and say, hey, I'm experiencing this disheartenment right now. But if you can give me permission, like I always say, looking for safe spaces, giving people, being a whiteboard for people. I really love that when you sit down and you talk to somebody, but they talk mostly, and you just take the words and then they reread their words and they bounce it back to themselves and figure out what's happening. I love conversations like that. And that is beautiful, to let them be human before they are anything else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think, I mean, that's really a key to connecting with anyone, you know, in certain cities, especially in the US, there's LA, New York, San Francisco, there can be an emphasis on status and, oh my gosh, this person is like Forbes 40 under 40, or, you know, whatever the thing is. But it's like, okay, cool. That's an accolade that, you know, however they got it, they did a cool thing that is commendable. Again, it's pretty cool. However, like, they're human, and to be able to look at everyone, no matter how externally accomplished they are or are not, just knowing also that success isn't always linear. You know, there's people that they could turn around and start a business and it could be wildly successful in a year, even though, you know, they're an admin right now. It's really, I think, just opening up to the resonance of the people that you meet, and managing your own energy so that you're most in touch with just, you know, that really vibrant energy where, you know, how I describe it is when I wake up and I feel like I'm glistening, you know, where it's almost like a sparkle from the inside out, where you're excited to get up. And, you know, I feel like I had that when I was hosting those events, where literally I woke up and I felt like I was sparkling and I jumped out of bed and I'm like, yes, let's go. And then during COVID, not gonna lie, the sparkle was a little dimmed. I'm not feeling the sparkle as much. And, you know, for the first time, and probably, you know, in a hot second, literally just a few days ago, I woke up and I felt the sparkle. I was like, yes, this is the zest for life. And, you know, I feel like for anyone listening that has moved to a new place, even a new home within the same city, whatever it is, like, if you've never felt the glisten, just tune in how you're feeling every morning. And before you go to bed, setting those positive intentions. And when you're living in congruence with what you believe your purpose is, what actually lights you up. And even if, you know, you quote unquote need to do things, you know, for an income, for example, that you're like, maybe not too jazzed about that at the moment. Or, you know, there are certain situations that you're in where you're like, it could take a little time to get out of this, to be able to be in that. And, but then direct more of your energy and attention and focus to the things that you love, to be able to feel that vibrancy. And then from that space, you are able to both attract and maintain connection with people that are kind of at that level. It's not to say to be a toxic positivity connoisseur where you're everything is great, even when it's not. But, you know, there's always something positive going on, even if it's the little things like, oh, you have a full fridge. You know, today I just marveled, I got groceries and I was like, whew, that makes me happy. You know, just looking in there at all the food that I just get to eat whenever I feel like it. That's nice, you know, like things so easy to not think about.
It is. And one of the things I used to do, especially during COVID, was winning Wednesdays. And it was WINS Day, because I truly believe in celebrating every day. And especially when you are in the mental health space, you have the image of what mental health is, which is not, because mental health means to be able to cope with, versus mental illness, which is very different. And mental disorder, it's so I always say, if you're having a wonderful mental wellness day, where you were maybe able to get up and take a shower today because maybe COVID had you down, if you were able to walk the dog today and you weren't afraid, if you were able to brush through your hair today, celebrate every win, because it's the little teeny moments, those little pebbles that you throw into the water that start the ripple effect. And for you, yours is tingles, mine is yellow. If I feel like if I wake up and I'm like, I could wear yellow today, I know I'm in my sweet spot. but that's one of those things that we
That's your
sometimes
solar plexus power center. You know, do you make that?
I love it. But I think that we all miss the mark sometimes with celebrating, because we think in order to celebrate, it has to be these big things. And having a fridge full of food is a wonderful celebration, especially with how expensive everything is right now. It's like, so I did something today. I went to the market, I put it in my cart, I paid for it, I walked out, and I get to eat what I like. This is lovely. But just putting that even in small you were able to brush through your hair today. You were able to talk to a friend today and maybe not cry. You were able to get up and not cry when you first woke up. When you went to sleep tonight, you were able to give yourself positive affirmations. You know, you were able to center yourself in order to go to sleep. You were able to put your phone down and not go to sleep with the phone on you. You know, just those little moments like that are just, they help build such a great presence in your life, and it helps you feel refreshed. And remember to breathe. Like, take a moment and breathe, some deep diaphragmatic breathing. I mean, pull it as far deep as you can and hold on to it and let some of that stress go, because it makes you such a better person to yourself, and then you can be a better person to other people, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. No, there's so much to unpack here. It all starts with the individual, and, you know, identify as being really community minded, but it's like the basis of the community, when you are a person that gathers people, is like how you're doing. And then also, yeah, like, I don't know, I feel like I'm tying this in with kind of all we've been talking about, which is aligning more with yourself to allow friendships that actually, maybe they were aligned at one point, or maybe they actually weren't, you know, that's up for discussion. But nonetheless, maybe they're just not in your life right now. But, you know, continuing to put yourself out there and be the best version of yourself that you know yourself to be, knowing that you're always a work in progress, having that humility in addition to that confidence that enables you to get up again.
Absolutely. And that's why I love your idea of like the holistic framework, right? Because organically, once you figure out, and I always say, because some of us don't know who we are. Some of us were raised by people who told us who we were, and it's not exactly who we were. Some of us have negative voices in our heads from people telling us, you know, they were mirroring their anger onto us. They were maybe mirroring their insecurities onto us. And maybe we weren't afraid of that thing, or we didn't feel that particular way. But learning how to center yourself and start finding out the things that you really love. You know, I always say, do you like it? Do you love it? Or is it something you can't live without? Because the can't live without never wavers. It never wavers. But if you like something, you're like,
Take it.
I could like it today or tomorrow. I don't know. And if you love something, you're willing to fight a little bit to keep it. So, you know, if you can be in the I love it stage of life, you're kind of in your sweet spot. And I agree with you. I love our conversation. It was so good. Just, I love how centered you are on friendship, because I always say I love friendship over intimacy every day, because I feel like friendships are so intimate. They get to learn about you on like that visceral level. A lot of your friendships that sometimes your partner does not always see initially, because you're like, I'm not going to act this goofy around, blah, blah, blah. And then but your friends get to see this, like, who are you talking about? No, Stephanie, no, she loves to joke. And the guy or the girl's like, what are you talking about? She just smiles at me. Because I'm afraid that if I really start doing this, I'm gonna have to live up to this. Like, and I'm not sure you're worthy of all of this kind of deliciousness that I have to give. I'm not sure. So I love it. The power of conversation. Like, I love how we've been able to, you were great with kind of connecting it and pulling it all full circle, which I love. And you were able to like really embrace the differences that we all have, but also note that those differences make us it makes us a full Voltron. It brings us so closer to the powerful parts of who we are, you know? And I believe that you're going to get back to your 1,000 events in probably 1 year at some point. You're just going to be flipping around.
Ooh, we'll see. Or maybe I'm fine if it, it's another 1,000 events in 10 years, really, because it took 5 years. It could take 20 years. It's about quality over quantity right now.
Yeah. But I feel like your personality, you seem like you are the energy that you're giving off, it invites other people to join you on this walk. Like we no longer feel like we have to do it alone. Now we're like, no, join me. Please come in and be a part of this. And you can take region A and you can take region B and you can have C, and y'all can call me and tell me how it's going because I'm on vacation this week, so. But I appreciate you being here. I hope you have a wonderful night. I hope your air conditioner never breaks, ever, ever. So you can have wonderful air all the time.
Yeah, thank you for having me. For anyone listening that wants to stay connected, or I have a few different freebies. So go to StephanieThoma, THOMA.com/free gifts and go ahead and take your favorite.
I love it. And they can find you on social platforms under?
So most of my handles are going to be Stephanie M. Thoma.
Okay. All right. And I'll make sure I add that to the list because I have all of your connections. I feel like I stalked you and I didn't mean to, but
no, I think it's fine. That's good. Because then
I'm like, because the Entrepreneurista platform it is wonderful so far. I'm very happy with the Entrepreneurista.
So you're brand new?
No, I've been a part of it since the beginning of this year.
Nice. I think maybe me too, because I was living in San Francisco. So yeah, it must have been like February or something like that.
Yeah, at the end of January, the beginning of February.
Are you a lifetime member?
Yes.
I did it because I was like, okay, for life, like that doesn't even make sense. Like,
I know, and that's what I said
like 1 year.
I know I said before they cut it off, and now you have to pay year by year.
Right.
But I feel like the amount of information that we receive and the amount of participation that's happening on the platform, it really kind of helps guide you and give you some nuggets that you would never be able to obtain unless you were in the room. And I feel pretty good about it. I love it. I love it so far.
Yeah. It's fun and like really great for collaborations. And I like how people are everywhere, all around the US and even some international. So like I was kind of missing, I was a part of a female like founder community. But then I was like hosting their in-person events in San Francisco. And then of course, events weren't happening. So then I wasn't in the group. Like they gave me some leeway, but then they're like, you're not really contributing to the group by hosting events anymore. So, and I was like, okay, bye, So it's cool to know, to have that security that like this group, well, as long as the group exists, like we're in it.
Yes. And I love it. And I'm like, even what we had to pay for the year, I've seen a lot of places where you have to pay more.
Oh, yeah.
Like actually. Yeah, so I said, I'm in, tag, you're in. And I got to meet you and have this wonderful conversation. And I appreciate that.
Me too. Yeah. So I'm curious when it might come out. I totally understand if there's a backlog. I know how the podcast world goes.
So I try to make sure that it's 2 weeks from the time that we film.
Yeah.
It comes out. And I'll make sure I'll tag you in every single thing, send you all the links, so that we can stay connected, and then you can send it out. And I always make shorter versions of what we talk about when we do like really great pinpoint moments, so that way you can blast it around. I'm all about opportunity. I'm like, I'm like, the more we big each other up, the better we are. Like the more we get our names out there, because it's saturated. I mean, not with what we're doing, because I feel like mental health and holistic living is kind of it's going to come up still.
Yeah.
But it's still saturated. And especially if in the United States, it's like a lot of people trying to figure out how to heal. That's what we're all trying to do. We're all trying to figure out how to heal and how to connect each other. So yeah, so 2 weeks.
Yeah, awesome. And then, so it's YouTube and iTunes, or?
It's on YouTube, Spotify. Well, on YouTube for visuals.
Okay, cool.
Spotify for audio. Instagram, I'll put snippets on Instagram. Sometimes I do like maybe 4-minute sections, and I'll do multiple ones depending on what's happening. You'll be on Facebook, you'll be on TikTok, you'll be on LinkedIn.
Yay. Yeah, I'm on all those things. Yeah. The reason I ask is because I know when we were talking, I felt like we had such an energy and a flow. And literally, some things I said, I was like, ooh, I want to make that into like a blog post. So I'm excited to like listen back to it and just like transcribe even like a line. And then do you ever do that where it's like past
Do
things
it
that you said,
all the
you know?
I stop. Like I always say, I'm like, my phone, if I ever lost my notes, I might lose my mind. I mean, I back up everything, but
Yeah.
sometimes you'll be talking and you stop and you're like,
That
I
was
need to
good.
pause this conversation because that was so good. Like I have some stuff, it's called This Needs to Be a T-shirt, and it's just a list of things that come up. But what I'll do is once I save everything, I'll send you the audio.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, because actually, so I'm still figuring out the very best way to transcribe audio, but actually I found out that on YouTube, if you click the three dots, you can click show transcript.
Yes,
And
and
then
then you highlight it.
yeah, so that's like the easiest.
That's,
Yeah, because the audio, I don't know yet how I would transcribe the audio, but yeah, whatever is easy
it
for
depends if you
you.
do certain sections. So depending on like how you like to, so audio, like so AutoCap, AutoCap is one that's really good. And then Captioned with a D at the end is another good app that sometimes I'll extract the audio from my video, put it into that, and then it'll transcribe it. Sometimes you got to go in and tweak things, but you're going to have to tweak it from YouTube as well. Because there's just your accent or depending on how close you were
Yeah.
to the microphone. But
I know it's not perfect, but I was going on Fiverr and hiring someone, but I was like, wait, it's just as good to do the YouTube transcription.
yes, the YouTube transcription is a game
I don't
changer.
know how long it's been there because I just started doing it in the last couple months.
It hasn't been, it can't be more than like a year. But my husband said to me, he said, Lee, he said, does it transcribe your videos? I said, what are we talking about here? Because I've spent a lot of time transcribing.
It takes a lot of time. So it's such a game changer. The only
Yeah.
weird thing for me, I'm still figuring out is when you copy and paste it, then it's like a thin line instead of taking up the whole page. But I was like, I can't even worry about that right now.
Do you have Canva?
I do.
If you if you create a document in Canva and then cut and paste that in there, it'll let you spread it out. So
Oh,
that way it now becomes more of a paragraph.
yeah.
You still got to go in and take the numbers out. But at least I like the minutes because that lets me know, like, okay, let me go to the video at 2 minutes and see if that's exactly what I was talking about. Like, yeah, I'm a techie nerd. I love it.
That's good. Oh my gosh, I know tech. I'm like embracing it more and more. I've interviewed people on my podcast where they're tech. I'm like, okay, cool. You know way more than I know. But yeah, thank you. Oh my gosh, I'm excited to get the audio and to share it when it comes out. And
Yes.
I'm so glad that we connected. I feel like that was a perfect amount of time. Like my introvert battery, I was like, okay, we're at a good closing point. We're now
Yes.
just have a chill rest of my night. Cause yeah, is it 7 for you as well? I'm in
No,
Central.
it's 8. It's 8.
Oh, it's
It's
8.
something
Okay,
like
so
an
you're probably
hour.
ready to wind down too. Yeah.
Yes, I always say I'm ready to take. Well, at this point, I'm ready to take the makeup off and the bra, and
I know, I
and
don't even have a bra on. That's why.
I was like, I'm going to be up, so let me keep them up because this
Yeah.
dress lets you know everything that's happening down below. It's like, whoa, that's a bit much, ma'am. I said, that's just not the kind of podcast I'm trying to run because,
Right? Camera
I'm like,
placement is everything.
it's different people looking at that podcast, and I don't want that.
Nope.
So, but I hope you have a wonderful night, and I'll make sure you get all the information. And again, I really thank you for coming on. I just truly appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Lovely, for all the care that you put into this as well. And you know how you laid out so clearly like when it's coming out and what to expect. So yeah, I'm excited.
I'm excited. So I hope to talk to you soon.
Yes, talk with you soon. Great to meet you and yay. Good night.
See ya. Thank you so much for joining us. We hope you found some healing, connection, and joy. Until next time, bye, loves.